If you're a person of my generation or thereabouts, chances are that your childhood was formed by growing up on a staple of Deepti Naval and Farooq Sheikh films. I know for one that when I would watch these films, I too would imagine a life in a home for myself that would be simple, where the home would be on a barsati, where there would be a chatai, where there would be tutti frutti ice creams with liveried waiters and many long rides on the backs of scooters. But then, of course, real life happens, and you realize that real life is way more complex than Sai Paranjpai would have us believe. Nevertheless, whether she liked it or not, Miss Chamko followed Deepti Naval wherever she went. But as we discover now in a memoir not about her life in films, but a memoir about her childhood, there is so much complexity to Deepti Naval and so much dissonance between the Deepti we saw and loved on screen and the Deepti who lived her life growing up in Amritsar before she moved to the United States of America. Deepti Naval's new book, A Country Called Childhood, has just been released. A fascinating portrait of not just her own life, but about a moment in history, a city and a country at the precipice of change. Deepti, it is a pleasure talking to you. And you may not like being Miss Chamko. In fact, I know from interviews that you positively hate it. But I hope you're aware of how much of a cultural phenomenon you have been for women like me. Our ideas of life, middle class values, integrity, love, all borrowed from those movies. I know you said once that Hema Malini told you that no matter where she went and how many films she did, people would only think of her as the Basanti in Sholay. And for you, it's been a little bit like that as Miss Chamko. That gap between who you played and your actual life, you've taken that back in this book to your childhood. Why did that Miss Chamko idea of Deepti Naval irritate you so much?
Thank you, Barkha, for having me on the show. Yeah, not that I hate it. I mean, it has given me everything that I possibly, in terms of uh, being recognized. Everything that I have done so far goes back to, oh, Miss Chamko. So it has really prodded me into the limelight. So I can't really hate it. But my thing is that I am not that girl. I'm no Miss Chamko. I'm no girl, a sweet girl next door. In fact, when people say, "Oh, you are so sweet," and so, I almost feel guilty. I feel, I feel, oh God, do I need to break the illusion? Should I let this carry on? What should I clear the cloud? What should I do? But of course, I owe a lot to Sai Paranjpe for having created Miss Chamko. Um, but that's not the image I identify with. I don't see myself like that. I see myself as the middle class girl who's far more stronger, much more stronger, self-willed, uh, is not going to compromise, is going to go after her dreams. So if you need to redefine the image of the girl next door, please let's add all these adjectives and all these, facets to her personality, and then we can talk about the girl next door again.
Deepti, at 70, why did you decide to go back to your life as a 13-year-old? The girl who ran away from home, the girl who ended up on the railway platform of the Pathankot station before she went back. And as you write in the book, you didn't even know why you ran away. Um, you could have spoken about your decades in cinema, but you chose at 70 to go back to your teen years, to your childhood. Why?
Because, Barkha, so much of life has been lived now. Everything seems to be now more in the past, more, not that there's no things up there in the future, but one is looking back a lot more now. And I really do realize that what a splendid time it was, the 60s, growing up in Amritsar at that time, and the kind of child that I was. there was so much I was taking in without realizing that it's all becoming part of my psyche, and it's going into this emotional reservoir, which is getting fuller and fuller. I just feel that there is no match to uh, anything up ahead in life. There's no match to my the splendid memories I have of my childhood. And this book is really, I was writing this book. I wanted to tell the world, where I come from, what was I made up of, what what was around me, what turned me out to be the way I was. I wanted to also pay homage to my parents, and I was writing the book for them, to tell them how I remember my childhood, which was such a gift from them. But unfortunately, both of them today are no more, and they will not be able to read this book, though they knew I was writing, because they gave me a lot of their life.
Yeah.
I recorded them a whole lot while I was doing research.
And of course, you write about how your early interest in acting started with your mother telling you stories about Burma and how she had a love for acting. But there's also a lovely bit about the craze for Rajesh Khanna. We forget that time because I don't think we live in those times anymore. Maybe there's a glut of social media, maybe Instagram makes you kind of feel like the actors, and that enigma, that sense of enigma, that sense of allure has gone. But talk a little bit about being this little girl in Amritsar, or Ambarsar, as Punjabis like myself would also call it, and being crazy about Rajesh Khanna. When I say crazy, I mean like literally obsessed with Rajesh Khanna,
Yes,
and how
yes.
that shaped you.
All the girls that I know from that time, I don't know any one girl who was not obsessed with Rajesh Khanna. My sister was different. She was obsessed with Shashi Kapoor.
Yeah,
she,
yeah.
she couldn't get over him. But anybody else that I knew, everybody, it was a huge craze. Rajesh Khanna was a huge craze. I don't think anybody escaped that. Any girl of that time, who was growing up, who was a teenager then, it just had to be. It was Rajesh Khanna all over the place, and yeah, it wasn't a. It was a kind of a craze that I haven't seen later in the later generations. I don't know what would be today. I don't know. I think people uh, they don't feel like that anymore. Today is very different. Stars are so accessible. They everybody knows so much about their lives. There is, like you said, there's no enigma left, but that was huge at that time. There was a mystery to it. Then there was this Sharmila Tagore, Rajesh Khanna romance. There was Aradhana. Aradhana days was a phase in our life.
Yeah, I think how many times did you watch it? I forget. You write in the book how many times you watched it.
17 times.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, it's like I don't think we respond to cinema in the same way anymore, and I wonder why that happened. But there are cataclysmic events that form the backdrop of your growing up in Amritsar. There is the war, the '65 war, which I must share with you. My mother actually reported that war as a correspondent at the Khemkaran front, and she wasn't allowed to go as a woman. She worked at the Hindustan Times, so she took chutti. She had a cousin in the military, and she went by herself and became India's first woman war correspondent reporting that war. So when I read about the war and how you saw it, you saw बहुत exciting hai, kya hai? And then your father decided, ki, no, I'm going to teach my daughter, ye war is a serious business. So
Yes.
talk a little bit about that time.
Yeah, I had grown up hearing stories about the Second World War, my mother's family's exodus from Burma to India, how they walked over the Assam hills, and over months, I mean, it took them months to get across to India, and all the hardship that went, I mean, total refugees, whatever they could bring, how she brought over the gramophone and all those stories, and then stories about partition. There were so many stories. When you are a child growing up in Amritsar, your parents don't have to tell you anything. You just hear them. They are in the environment. The stories about partition, how cruel they were. It was always them who was so cruel. It was always them, you know. It was never us that who was cruel. They were what? Zalim log the, you know. So all that. And I, you know, we were full of all that. And then, I thought that हमारी life कितनी bland है. There's nothing happening. I mean, these guys, they went through Exodus twice. They were refugees twice. There was so much happening. There was such a movement happening in their lives. They, you know, being dislocated all the way from Burma to Mukeria, and then Lahore, back here, and there were so many stories, and that's what fascinated me. They had so many stories to tell, and we had no story. So when we heard on the news, Pakistan ne Khemkaran border pe or whatever attack kar diya hai, you know, whatever that Pakistan attacks or war has been declared. It was such excitement. We thought finally, something in our lives is happening. We are going to be part of it. There's history going to be created. और हम लोग अमृतसर में और वो लाहौर उधर है. So there's going to be this whole, we are on the border. We are a border city, border town. And now there's, the tanks were going, you know, passing by. The people were out on the streets. There was the patriotic songs playing all day long, even late into the night. Oh, "Ae Watan, humko teri kasam." I mean, it was just so charged, the atmosphere. The women were out there, khana bana ke faujiyon ke liye. They would stop all these trucks passing by. They would feed them and then go, you know. And the young girls, the college girls, they were sitting in the hospitals writing letters for the Fauji's, letters home. And we schoolgirls, we were not allowed to do any of this. We just had to darken all the windows. जब blackout होता था, तो काला drawing paper लगाओ, काला वो लगाओ, and trenches बनते थे. Trenches में we would, there would be a test, routine, you know, drill होती थी. Mock drill, where every time the siren went off, you had to go run and cower inside those trenches. But we were girls who never did that. We would run up on the terrace and trying to see the Sabre jets, you know, going, you know, sort of worrying overhead and getting all excited about that. Till my father said, okay, hold it. This is not war. This excitement, all this is not happening. This is serious war. People are losing their lives on the border. You need to go to, I'm going to take the girls to the border. Mama said, why? To show them this gory side of it. He says, no, they need to understand what it is, the reality of war. They need to know. So he took us there, and I saw some pretty stark images there.
Why did you run away from home?
I wish I knew with the clarity with which you asked me this question.
I mean, maybe at 70, you was it just an adventure? You know, we'd all grown up reading storybooks about little girls who ran away and found themselves. We grew up on a staple of Blyton books where, you know, you went and hid in the tree house. This was obviously more than that. Was it an urge for adventure, a one-day adventure? What was it?
You know, I had seen, first of all, I mean, the obvious answer would be that was a phase I was living where every Hindi film that I saw, it was all shot in Kashmir. You know, we hadn't gone to the mountains for a few years because my little brother had come, and I guess my parents were trying to kind of adjust their finances in a way that our needs were basically met, and, you know, and those fancy Kulu holidays of my childhood, they had dwindled. So the first thing I can tell you is I wanted to go to Kashmir. I was yearning. I was so enamored by seeing the mountains in every film. सारे गाने वहाँ पे picturized होते थे. Every film had Kashmir in it. तो मुझे लगता था दुनिया तो कश्मीर में है बस्ती. I mean, uh, Kashmir is something I want to see. But there was no, I was also at that time, I was feeling a little alienated from my parents. I was a little distant from them. They were probably consumed with my little brother.
Mm.
So there was a lack of, film देखने गए और कोई लड़का आके बात करने लग गया. So they made such a hullabaloo about it. I didn't like that. I thought such a natural thing to happen. I mean, a guy comes in, we're sitting chatting with him. कौन सा क्या हो गया? Something like that. And I felt that no, they don't understand us.
Yeah.
Parents don't understand us.
Well,
They
that's
are
every teenage girl and
every teenage girl. So
and her parents. Yeah.
yeah, so they are the others who don't, we can't confide in them. So,
Yeah.
and I was a huge introvert. I did not, I mean, my friends, when they read this book, they will discover who I was. They have no clue who I was. I was a complete introvert. I lived in my own little world, जो अपने अंदर बस उसको उसमें मैं रहती थी, and I was very happy there. I was happy there. And I wanted to further create a world for myself. And in that world featured Kashmir, the valley of Kashmir, the Dal Lake, the shikaras, the joy rides, Dal Lake. So I took off. I just took off. I went to the railway station in Amritsar. I knew probably कि वो एक ट्रेन है जो रात को पठानकोट जाती है, and इतना पता कर लिया था that there is a bus which takes you to Jammu, and then from Jammu you go to Srinagar. See, the first thing somebody asked me, oh, did you run away from home because you wanted to join films? I said, no, I didn't run away. I didn't have a ticket to Bombay. I wanted to go to Srinagar. So
yeah. That's lovely. But of
later,
course, your popular imagination was shaped by romance on cinema, all the movies set at that time in Kashmir.
Exactly. Then, of course, I write about how I was, Kaan Pakad Ke platform, railway platform, Pathankot. I had to spend the whole night in the ladies' waiting room and be, sent back, escorted by some, one of the police people. And then that happened.
Yeah, and thank God that story didn't end. That story ended frankly happily, because anything can happen to a little girl, by herself at a railway platform. So thank God for that. But now tell me this: your life, part of your, sorry, say what you say.
No, I'm saying, when you say thank God, and when I say thank God, I also realize the simplicity of those times. There was no crime as such. It wasn't like, if there had been, maybe we would have been more aware of it. I've been more informed.
You would have been more circumspect about running away. Now tell me this, your part of your family's experience with partition is told in the Partition Museum in Amritsar. But when you were writing this book, you did not want to go to the sort of newly varnished Golden Temple and the newly recreated Jalliawalla Bagh. When you finally did go, you were disappointed. Not with Golden Temple, not with the Golden Temple, but with the spruced up Jalliawalla Bagh. Why was that?
Yeah. When I entered the Golden Temple, I was ecstatic. It was beautiful. It was beautifully done. But then the next thing is that you go to Jalliawalla Bagh, and I had been told, "Abhi usko bahut acha kar diya hai," and I was already wary of this acha version of Jalliawalla Bagh, because I had gone to, during my film festivals, I'd gone to Hiroshima. And I'd seen how they have preserved those devastated buildings, how they've cordoned off those areas, and you see them, you walk around them, nothing is touched. It is just preserved the way when the bombardment happened, when the bombs came down, and what it did to the city and the people. It has been kept like that. And I was very saddened. I was hurt. I can say I was personally hurt. How can you go and tamper with? You don't need, there is no need to beautify. There is need to keep it as a reminder of what had happened. You cannot beautify. You cannot you cannot, I mean, decorate it.
Yeah.
Uh, I somehow was very, very disturbed, very hurt with that beautification of Jalliawalla Bagh. No.
Yeah, the rawness of it, in a way you felt sanitized, which a lot of people have spoken about. Let's come back to the book and to your mother.
Yeah.
And I have a theory that we all become our parents in ways that we don't even realize. And so we spend our childhood resisting, arguing, rebelling. And then we find that we have become shades of them. And when I was reading your book, I was very intrigued to know, because you don't actually talk about, the rest of your life. I was very intrigued to know, when you look back at your childhood today and your relationship with your mother, did
Yeah.
you become a mother like she was to you? Or are you a different kind of parent?
I I think I have become like my mother in her sensibilities, her aesthetics, her love for art, her the way she would react to nature. But she was very strict. She was
Hmm.
strict. She had to be strict, at that time, because she was in the circumstances from which she came. She had to be like that. I am a much more friendlier mother to my daughter, Disha. We are more like friends. Disha can talk her heart out to me. There are things she cannot spell out. With other friends of hers, she can speak to me. And I have kept that. I have made sure that I'm more approachable a mother than my mama was. I mean, I'm so much like her. I mean, even my face is changing, and I mean, my family tells me that you're becoming more and more like mama. तेरे को क्या हो रहा है? And I am under say I'm very thrilled that
Yeah.
yes, I want to be more and more like mama, because she was so graceful, she was all that, but she was too strict. She
Yeah.
actually objected. She actually objected to my joining films. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Somebody who would dance on the table and say, "मैं तो Bombay Talkies जाके actress बनूंगी." For her to become so strict and say, "No, you come back. You come back to New York. You're not going to stay here in Bombay. Not a good place for." No, 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 no. I mean, eventually she came around.
Yeah,
But
lovely. Those are the paradoxes of parenting and our relationships with our parents. Your film Goldfish actually explores something that is borrowed from your own life, which was your
yeah,
mother's battle with dementia.
yes,
And I know that you have said that this actually needed to be a film by itself. But how tough has it been? Because I'm just wondering, like, how old were you when you saw this happen to your mother, and how did that play out for you, being a daughter?
um, it was very it was truly excruciating, to watch her go through what she did. She would hallucinate, and it was such heartbreaking sight to see her imagine things that were not there, and uh, be living in another time zone, um, and to have to bring her back and say, "Mama, no, it's not those times. That person doesn't exist. It's now. You're here. I'm here with you now. It's me." And it was very heartbreaking to see her. And she
Yeah.
only in the very end, she died 4 years ago. In the very end, did strangely, she started realizing that her mind is playing games with her.
Hmm.
She started saying, "Ke, I don't know what's happening to my mind. I don't know what's happening." Because I played in the film Goldfish, I play little earlier dementia, a woman who's just entering dementia, and it has set in. But with Mama, because she lived in America, I would bring her back to India with me only during the winter months there, and then I would look after her. So I got that opportunity. Thank God for that, that I had those months with her year after year. But my younger brother saw a lot of that, her gradual deterioration.
Decline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
decline.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if this happened because of what happened to your mother or other experiences. You have spoken of a school friend, a close school friend, who
Yes.
had her own
Studying
battle with,
children.
yeah, with
Yeah.
mental health. You have spoken about in your poetry, not in this book, about your
In the,
own sort of suicidal thoughts,
oh,
those
yeah.
gloomy years. And then you have spoken about actually wanting, to be expose yourself to a real life psychiatric ward where women were battling mental health issues. Now, I want you to join the dots of all of this and explain to us why this playing with the boundary, in a way, of what is called normal. This is obviously something that you have spent some time thinking about, whether it was your dearest best friend, whether it was your own trysts with near suicidal thoughts, which you have spoken about in your poetry, or whether it was this experience of moving into this ward where women were battling mental health issues.
See, I think it started with Mama's Burma stories, when she would say that how her young cousin, Sunny Bowry, was taken in by the Japanese in the torture camps. How the Burmese people were tortured, and he was this little 13-year-old Indian boy who had to translate everything for the Japanese. And at the end of that, by the time that whole thing ended, he lost his mind. So it was very circumstantial. He was thrown into a situation which made him kind of go, uh, off his rocker. So that stayed with me. The one of the first images that stayed with me from all the Burma stories. How how Sunny Bowry. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting the Roland. Roland. How Roland um, lost his mind because of being an interpreter for the Japanese. Okay, Sunny Bowry was the one who ran away from Mandalay and came and joined Bombay Talkies to be a dancer. Roland was the first. Okay, so after that, it was my school friend Nita, who uh, forced me to open my mind to the aberrations of the brain, human brain. What else could be happening there? There could be a whole area in there which we wouldn't understand. We were like, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know unless we confronted somebody like that. And then that's what prompted me to study abnormal psychology when I went to New York and I joined college. This is one of the subjects that I studied. And because I studied that, and I could also later, because circumstances pushed me to a point where I was going through, almost became a manic depressive. There was a cycle. Every that many days, I would start feeling that nothing about my life is right. I would hit like rock bottom. Everything seemed like, I mean, my whole life seemed like a huge big failure. All decisions have been wrong decisions, and it was just negative. And that depression would set in. And because I had studied psychology, I could see, I was observing myself. I could see myself heading that way, going that route, and then hitting that rock bottom. And I also knew nobody's going to be able to help me. I have to pull myself out, because now it's coming, and I'm going to get there. And then it's going to be so hard to get up and pull your face out of the water.
Yeah.
So
But you did. But
that
you did.
yes, I fought it all that time. I fought it, and I fought it very quietly because I had been a student of psychology, of normal psychology.
How many years would you say you were a manic depressive?
This was my 90s. This was the 90s when my personal life was completely gone haywire, and very disturbed phase in my personal life, and that's why I was constantly getting back into this depression mode, and I fought that. And then I thought that if when I did Ankahi, Amol offered me this film called Ankahi. When I did that, I wanted to visit a mental asylum. And he said, don't do that, don't do that. I don't want you to be all prepared and everything, get these ideas. There is enough inside us. Each one of us has enough. Yeah. We can bring it out. We just need to tap it and then it'll come out. But I went in any case. And I came back very, 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 very disturbed. And I thought, my God, I feel like I've taken a great beating, and if one visit of staying in the women's ward can do this, what if I was doing a whole role? I mean, if I was there for 30 days, what would it do to me? Which areas of my own mind will it make me confront? So I wanted to write that subject, which was called Split. So in order to write the subject, I went in the ward again for 3 days maybe to do my homework and make my notes.
Yeah.
But I just got involved and I stayed on.
Yeah, but I have to say thank you for sharing it, because even today, so many people would balk at the thought of coming out and saying there were years when I was a manic depressive. They would balk at this, and it takes courage, and thank you. I have to ask you in the end before we let you go. I don't know if you're aware that one of your old movies, a still from that movie, Kisi Se Na Kehna, has become a raging point of sort of contemporary politics, because a fact checker, Mohammed Zubair, made a kind of joke of the Hanuman Hotel and a honeymoon hotel. He, of course, was making a political point, which was not in Rishikesh Mukherjee's film. And then he was arrested. And I was just wondering whether you looked at that, whether you thought, oh my God, that blast from my past. And today it's become the context for such a ferocious political debate. So any thoughts?
I was just amazed and surprised. I mean, I couldn't believe that the clip was sent to me by one of my friends. And then I got a couple of calls from news channels saying, what do you have to say? And because I didn't know why that clip had been posted on Twitter or wherever by this person. I didn't know what was his incentive to have used that. Was he trying to show कि look बहुत innocently पहले ये सब चीजें आराम से हो जाती थी, and we had to take it with I mean, we have to have some sense of humor also, right? So maybe it was that, or was there more to it? So I waited to understand why had he tweeted, why had he put out that clip? Because I didn't know why, that's why I didn't make a comment on it. But let me tell you, in the film, it is such a delightful scene जहाँ पे वो they have told father को कुछ और बोल के आए हैं कि हम पता नहीं कहाँ भजन सुनने जा रहे हैं या क्या है, and then there's this they are on a honeymoon actually, and then the father is supposed to be following them, or पता चल जाएगा कि we are actually in this hotel called Honeymoon Hotel. So they quickly turn that around and they change the lettering around,
the matra,
and make it look like a Hanuman Hotel.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was something like that. Honestly, Barkha, I don't even remember what the scene was. But since I'm looking pretty happy and cheerful in that clip, so I thought things were okay between me and Farooq. So it was kind of, innocent kind of a scene tha. But politically, now I don't see any reason for arrest. I mean, I don't know. This is why I say that I need to know, why did he put that out? What was his statement? Do you know what he was trying to say?
Well, he was making a political statement using that joke about and that's a separate debate. But he used the clip. he used the clip to make a larger political point about what, you know, he took 2014 and said pehle ye hota tha, uske baad ye hota tha, and now of course there are multiple other charges that have been leveled against Mr. Zubair, but at that time, that clip, everybody then went back to the archives and they took out this Rishikesh Mukherjee clip, and you know, it became a big talking point. So I was just wondering if you had caught up with that. Before we let you go, what's the one smell of childhood? You know, memory has a smell. एक होता है ना कि आप कुछ याद करते हैं तो आपको एक खुशबू या एक महक या कुछ, कई बार ओडर भी होता है. Smell of childhood for you?
बारिश की जो महक, the first rain of the monsoon.
Lovely. Deepti Naval, whether you own or disown how we saw you on screen, I want you to know that for an entire generation of women, my generation, you were so relatable, because I can't look at women today in the sort of filtered reality, the augmented reality almost of beauty, and you know what it's doing to young women and their self-images. So just for that, for being authentic, whether or not you were Miss Chamko or not, for that authenticity that shines through even today, thank you. Congratulations on your book, and looking forward to the sequel. Thank you so much, Deepti.
Thank you, Barkha. Thank you.
Take care.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.